A lot of my friends ask, how in the world can you remain optimistic in the face of so much evidence to the contrary? And, but, ironically, not to be flip, but ironically, I feel like we manage water so poorly and we use water so wastefully that I think there's an awful lot of room for improvement. And so that's part of the reason that I'm optimistic about certainly about our ability to do better. And I think in many parts of the world, I think that if we can move aggressively enough to apply the knowledge that already exists, the technology and the knowledge that already exists, that we can actually catch up. That we can get out ahead of scarcity and get close, if not fully, into a state of what I would call sustainability. There has been a very, very significant legislation was put into place in California a few years ago called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And it was a response to the fact that we have been, depleting, and even at an increasing rate, depleting our groundwater aquifers in the state of California. And so the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act calls for reaching a stable state in those groundwater aquifer levels, at a certain point, in the not too distant future. And so that has very serious implications. And I think it has serious implications because there's going to be less water available to use, right? To reach a sustainable level. If we're overusing now, we've got to cut it down to a lower level to get it back within a long-term sustainability. That has very, very serious implications for agricultural production and agricultural water use. But it's also incredibly important as a driver of change in water use, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to push innovation. It's going to push adoption of available practices and technologies, and it's going to push innovation so that they can, so that we can enable, these farmers to keep producing at close to the level that they're currently producing at while using substantially less water. It's really fascinating to me. We've done so much research on water scarcity, in different river basins around the world. And it's uncanny how many places are they require a shift of about 20%. That's the pivot, that's the magnitude of pivot. Colorado River Basin, if you got that, you're back, you're back in sustainability realm. So that's really, really fascinating. And that's good news. What I think is really, really interesting in some of these studies that we've taken a close look at have borne this out is that as you increase the organic matter content and improve the overall structure of the soils become more capable of retaining moisture. And if the soils are more capable of retaining moisture because of that improvement in their structure and organic matter composition, then it requires less supplemental water to be applied. It could probably extend, the places where, rain-fed agriculture would be viable, but very importantly, if you can reduce the amount of supplemental irrigation water that needs to be applied, then that's a very, very important improvement.